on its issues that it gives to Republicans, including yourself. You got a 50% rating from Napa. What's that about?
Well, ultimately, groups like that are more concerned with just getting more money from the federal government. But as we all know, local police are funded at the local level. It was locals who defunded police. And so if they want no accountability, you're not going to find an absolvement of accountability from people like me. So I will support good police every single day. And I have stood up for police when you've seen others out there criticizing them. So I'm sure some of the people on their A list are people who embrace the defund police movement. That tells you a lot about their scorecard.
In fact, that is the case. There's no question about that. Congressman Steve Scalise from the great state of Louisiana, good to spend time with you. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Always great being with you. Thanks.
All right, we are continuing to watch as we believe by many reports that car now contains Bill Cosby, having been released from prison within just a couple of hours of us hearing that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court had overturned his conviction. Let's bring in Alex Hogan for more details. She is the one who covered this trial, among others. And she's got some new updates for us. Hey, Alex.
Hi, Shannon. So we're learning that he was released from prison just after 2:30. This, of course, after spending nearly 3 years behind bars, part of a 10-year sentence. So again, we can't see that live video right now of that car on the highway. Now, Bill Cosby does have a home just outside of Philadelphia. His case was in the Montgomery County Courthouse, also just outside of the city. And the woman who was at the center of this case, Andrea Constand, we did reach out to her attorneys. They so far do not have a comment. They said that they are reviewing all of this. Of course, it's 79 pages of documents from the court releasing this opinion, basically overturning that decision that put him behind bars initially for 10 years after a jury of 5 women and 7 men found him guilty back in September of 2018. There is more reaction pouring in. We have a response from Bill Cosby's on-air wife, Felicia Rashad from The Cosby Show. Now, she tweeted about her co-star writing, "Finally, a terrible wrong is being righted. A miscarriage of justice is corrected." So, of course, that is reaction celebrating Bill Cosby's release. It's not quite the same message, of course, for the nearly 60 women who went to that courthouse, many of them accusing him of sexual assault decades earlier. So their cases did not hold up in court. Some of them did have the opportunity to speak, but it was beyond the statute of limitations, so they were not able to bring their message, at least legally, into this case. However, attorney Lisa Bloom, who was reacting, and she actually was the attorney for several of those victims, she released a statement saying that it's appalling what money can still buy the criminal system, and also calling this basically a gut punch for all of the victims. Again, nearly 60 women who accused Bill Cosby of some kind of sexual harassment or sexual assault within decades of when this trial happened. Now, of course, Andrea Constand's claims stemmed from 2004. We'll still have to wait to see what she has to say, if she does make any statement, and of course to see if Bill Cosby himself will speak. We've long heard him say that he believes he did nothing wrong, that all of these acts were consensual, and that he was not going to participate in any sex offender classes or involvement in prison. That was something that happened back in May. So again, as we're watching this, there's a lot of reaction. Another high-profile Me Too case was that of Harvey Weinstein, and some of his lawyers also responded. They say that this is something to celebrate, saying, quote, "That decision also reaffirms our confidence that the appellate division in New York will reach a similarly correct decision in Harvey Weinstein's appeal." So they basically are celebrating this as a victory for them as well. Clearly, some surprising news for people who are watching this as we're continuing to get more details about what this means. But likely what we're seeing is that Bill Cosby will not be tried again. Of course, we did have the initial trial that ended in a mistrial. That second jury did find him guilty, but the unexpected news here, Shannon, is that we are seeing him drive home after just nearly 3 years behind bars.
Yeah, and as you said, reaction coming in. RAIN, which is a big group against sexual violence and speaks out on behalf of a number of sexual abuse and assault survivors, says they worry about the message this sends to brave survivors who came forward to seek justice. And now, John, it looks like we've got an important update here.
Yeah, and we've got video now of the outside of the compound where Bill Cosby calls home in Elkins Park, a house that he bought back in the early 1980s. It's on 3 acres of property, so he's got a lot of privacy there, and will likely just wheel all the way in. And I would suspect, Shannon, we're not going to hear from him today. We may hear from his attorneys. Let's bring in Fox News correspondent at large, Geraldo Rivera, who definitely has two thoughts about this, as he articulated earlier, about the character of Bill Cosby, but then also about the letter of the law. Geraldo, some final thoughts?
I just want people to, when you have a movement like Me Too, it's very, very powerful. It sweeps everything in its path. We've watched it change society. Society needed changing. The predators needed punishing. But in the zeal to correct a historic wrong, in the individual case of Bill Cosby, I believe his constitutional rights were clearly violated. There is no way in God's green earth that you can bring in so many unrelated supporting witnesses to condemn someone in this fashion. It really stinks of arbitrary justice. This was unfair to him. He may be everything that the accusers say he is. He may be the lowest of the low. I make no claims to know anything to corroborate his good character. I heard the accusers. I was repulsed by these allegations. Still, the criminal justice system is not where you get revenge. If you want to bring a case in the criminal justice system, it has to A, be timely, and B, it has to be supported by the evidence. In this case, it was neither, John and Shannon.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court justices, the majority, at least agrees with you on all of those points. Even the dissenting judge agrees that bringing in the 5 additional witnesses, the bad behavior witnesses, was an error in law. He did not agree with this idea that the promise that the former prosecutor made to Bill Cosby was valid in terms of whether or not his successor would have to adhere to it or not. But at least 50% of the way, he agrees with you on the letter of the law, Geraldo.
But Lisa Bloom, to suggest that the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, was in the tank for money, that money bought justice here, is so appalling. Here's an officer of the court undermining the very system in which she plies her living, to suggest that the appellate justices were bribed, essentially bought off. I think that where does this end now? Where does zeal, where does enthusiasm for justice end, and this kind of individual revenge seeking take over?
Yeah, well, clearly opinions on that side are going to be very heated now that he is out of jail. Geraldo, I was great to see you. Thanks for joining us with your thoughts on this.
Thank you. You too, John.
So you're the legal eagle. What are you thinking about all this?
I think, all of our
because you
attorneys-
handled these cases in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, all of these wonderful experts we've had us join us today, and our attorneys make the exceptional point that we have to keep saying we may not like how cases turn out, but we have to respect the foundations of how this works. We're all going to want due process in the moment that we need it. It has got to be incredibly disappointing to these accusers, but the court did what it thought technically it had to do.
Yeah, and as we made the point with Jonas Spilborn earlier, for his victims, they saw him in prison for 2 years and a little bit, at the very least, as opposed to walking free. But now he's walking free. And
we wonder if we'll hear from him or his legal team. We'll stand by for that. Great to see you today.
Good to see you as well. The story with Martha starts right now, and she's got continuing coverage.
Indeed we do. Thank you, John and Shannon. Hello, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum in New York. We've really got 3 big